After nearly 4 years of delays, revisions, and rising costs, Canada's federal Firearm Buyback program is finally moving forward. Starting now, owners of banned firearms have until March 31st to declare their participation in the federal buyback or face criminal penalties once the amnesty period ends. The government says this is about public safety. Critics say it's expensive, ineffective, and aimed at the wrong people. So today, we're going to break it down. What the program actually does, what changed with this new announcement, how much it's costing, who supports it, who opposes it, and whether it's likely to reduce violent crime at all. Because this policy is no longer theoretical, it's happening. I'm your host, Pierre Shields. This is North of MAGA. Let's dive in. What was announced this week? The federal government has officially launched the individual phase of its firearm buyback program. Here's what that means. Firearm owners now have until March 31st to declare banned firearms. Compensation will be offered on a first-come, first-served basis, and approved owners will later be invited to turn in their firearms or permanently deactivate them. Firearms can be surrendered to the RCMP, to your local police, or mobile collection units. The final deadline to comply is October 30th, when the amnesty expires. After that, possession becomes a criminal offense. Public Safety Minister Gary Anandansangiri said the goal is clear. These are firearms designed for war. They have no place in our communities. What firearms are affected? Since May 2020, the federal government has banned approximately 2,500 firearm models, including AR-15 variants, certain semi-automatic rifles, and firearms deemed assault style. The classification is not based on function alone, but on design and appearance. The government says these firearms are not needed for hunting, are unsuitable for civilian use, and pose an elevated public safety risk. Critics rightly argue many were already restricted or tightly regulated. Owners were vetted and licensed, and these firearms are rarely used in crimes. As a matter of fact, most guns used in crimes come from the US. Go figure. How much will this cost? This is where the debate intensifies. The government has now allocated $250 million for individual compensation. Over $250 million. I'm not sure if that could go to better places, like right now. Over $742 million total since 2020, and compensation expected for about 136,000 firearms. That figure doesn't include administrative costs. Oh my God, could you imagine what those are going to be? Policing and enforcement, storage and destruction, legal challenges, and provincial resistance. Earlier pilot programs saw limited success. In Cape Breton, for example, the government hoped to collect 200 firearms, while only 25 were turned in. It only cost $14.7 million to do so. No, it's not true. That's one of the reasons critics say the cost-to-impact ratio is dangerously high. It really is. Supporters versus critics. Supporters argue this removes dangerous firearms from circulation. It honors victims of mass shootings. It aligns Canada with other gun control countries, and it prevents future misuse. Yeah. Groups supporting the program include the Police se souvient, which is the group after the Polytechnique incident in Montreal, Canadian Doctors for Protection from Guns, and Danforth Families for Safe Communities. They argue the program is a necessary public safety measure, even if it's imperfect. Critics, and me, argue the program targets legal owners, not criminals. Most gun crimes involve smuggled weapons. The cost is disproportionate to results. Money would be better spent on border enforcement, and police resources are being diverted. The Canadian Taxpayer Federation called the program an expensive distraction from the real problem of illegal gun smuggling. I kind of agree. Some police associations have also expressed concern that the program does little to address violent crime. The provincial resistance. The rollout hasn't been smooth. Alberta and Saskatchewan have both resisted implementation. The federal government admits legal barriers exist, provinces are not cooperating, and enforcement varies by region. Minister Anandansangiri acknowledged, I really had to practice Anandansangiri, there are legal impediments that have been deliberately placed on this program. This has created a patchwork system where enforcement depends heavily on provincial cooperation. The SKS controversy. One issue drawing increased attention is the SKS rifle. It's widely used in Indigenous and rural communities, often used for subsistence hunting, and not currently banned. Gun control groups argue, I think rightly. If SKS sales continue, buyback money could be used to buy newly purchased firearms, and that would undermine the entire program. The government has confirmed it's reviewing the classification. This could become the next major flashpoint. I'm not sure the SKS argument is the biggest argument here. I think it's more about spending so much money right now on something that's, yes, a problem, but maybe not number one priority. The core question. This debate comes down to one fundamental issue. Does this program actually reduce violent crime? So far, no evidence shows legal rifle owners are driving gun violence. Most crime guns are smuggled. Gang violence remains a dominant source of shootings, and police say resources are stretched thin. That doesn't mean the program has no moral or symbolic value. It does, but it raises a serious question. Is this policy about safety or about sending a political message? Conclusion. The firearm buyback is now real. Deadlines are set, funding is committed, enforcement is coming, but the results remain uncertain. Canada now faces a choice: double down on symbolic policy or redirect resources toward crime prevention, border control, and enforcement. Actually, anywhere. There's got to be bigger priorities. Because if the goal is safer streets, then the solution has to match the problem. Subscribe, like, comment, share, tap your head, rub your tummy, do the moonwalk. God, it's crazy. The algorithm hates me. Thanks for spending time with me. This is North of MAGA. I'm your host, Pierre Shields. Go play outside.